Hi everyone, this is Heather here with Treasured Hometown. Today I was just going to take a little bit to show you how to create these lovely little flower granny squares. These actually throw a very nice big pop to the traditional idea of a granny squares. They work slightly differently, and as you can see, the different little flowers add very much of a color difference into it. This video I'm only showing you how to create the squares just because it's, especially while initially learning, they are a little bit time consuming, but once you get the hang of it, they generally do work up quite quickly. And as always, in the video description box below, I will have all of the items used to create this design in the video description box below. So if anyone's looking for whatever materials and everything, they will be linked. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Hello everyone. So today I wanted to take a moment to show you how to create these lovely granny squares. They are actually slightly different from a traditional granny square, but kind of works the same concept of them. Now I do love how with the contrast and everything throughout these, and then these little puff flowers that are also worked into it. Just to show you for gauge that yes, these are actually about 8 inches by 8 inches. And imagine all of the beautiful blankets or bags or even woven into a cardigan that these will end up creating. So to create this one, what we're going to need is just a couple supplies. We're going to use a 5mm crochet hook. We'll need our scissors in order to cut our yarns, a darning needle to weave in any ends that we haven't been able to work in, and then we're going to use, this is just simply some Red Heart acrylic yarn. I'm using simply black as the main color, and then for the contrast I'm using, it's another Red Heart yarn. It's called Starburst, and these are number 4 weight, 100% acrylic. To begin, we're going to start off by creating a magic ring. So for this, we're going to hold our tail end of our yarn between our thumb and forefinger. We're going to wrap around our 2 fingers, so our working end is facing towards us, and then simply lay it back away from your body. Then we'll take our crochet hook, go between our 2 fingers, grab the working end of our yarn to pull up a loop, and then from here we chain 3. Now for this pattern, this first chain 3 does in fact count as a double crochet stitch for the round. Now what we're going to want to do is work 4 double crochets into the ring. So yarn over, go into the ring, pull up a loop, 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, go through your first 2 loops, yarn over, and go through your last 2 loops. Now we want to work 3 more of those double crochets into the ring. So if we look at it, we made 4 double crochets plus the chain 3, which counted as a double crochet. Then we're going to want to chain 2. Now we want to work another cluster of 5 double crochets into the ring. And then from here, chain 2. And then we want to work 2 more clusters of 5 double crochets with a chain 2 in between those 2 clusters into the ring. Two, 3, 4, 5, and then chain 2, and then 5 more double crochets, So now if we look at it, we've got 4 clusters of 5 double crochets into the ring. Now we'll just grab our tail end of our magic ring and just pull it in order to close it up a bit. Now I do leave the opening open just a little bit. It's about the size of a dime that can fit into there. Now, because each corner does have a chain 2, what we're going to do is work into this 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of the round. We're going to put a half double crochet into that stitch. So yarn over, go into the stitch, and pull up our loop. So now we have 3 loops on our hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So now as you can see, that stitch put us right in the center of that. So now we don't have a seam where we got to slip stitch across in order to get to it, or have a strange opening onto the side. From here we chain 3. So this counts as our first stitch coming out of that chain space, but we kind of worked away from that chain in the center there. Now we're going to want to put 1 more double crochet into there. Now, working into the tops of the double crochet stitches, we're going to want to put 1 double crochet into the next one. Now you might want to, this is also where we put the same stitch where we put that half double crochet, so it's that first chain 3. And then a double crochet into the next stitch. And then here we're going to chain 1, and we're going to skip this next double crochet stitch from the first round. And then we're going to double crochet into the top of your next 2 stitches. And now here we're at that chain 2 space. We're going to put 2 double crochets. And then chain 2. And we're going to work this next side similar to we just did this one. So 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space. And then into the top of that first double crochet, we have 5 double crochets from the previous row. So you might want to have to pull your stitches over a little bit to find that first double crochet. And we're going to double crochet into there and the next stitch. And then we chain 1, skip this next stitch, and then double crochet into the next 2. And then 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space. And then chain 2, and we're just going to repeat this for these last 2, except for whenever we get to the last chain 2. Now that we're here at the end, just like in the previous row at the end, we're going to do a half double crochet into this 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of our round. And there we are with the end of round 2. So just so you can see a little better, with a little chain space right in the center, and then our corners. All right, now for round 3, we're going to start this off again with a chain 3. And yes, this does count as our first double crochet. And we want to put 1 more double crochet into that chain 2 space. And then we're going to work 1 double crochet into your next 2 stitches. So we're seeing the top of that first double crochet. It's also where we put our half double crochet from the last round into. So 1, 2, and then chain 1, skip the next stitch, double crochet into your next, chain 1, skip 1, that chain 1, and double crochet into your next stitch, chain 1, skip the next double crochet stitch, and then double crochet into the stitch after, and then double crochet into your next stitch, and then into the chain 2 space we want to put 2 double crochets, and then chain 2. So here we are with the one side for our next row, and what you're seeing, we're putting 3 little chain 1 spaces along the side. So going forward into our next row or next side, gonna put 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space, and then 1 double crochet into your first 2 stitches from the previous row, and then chain 1, skip your next stitch, double crochet into the next, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, skip your next stitch, double crochet into your next 2 stitches, and then 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space, and then chain 2, and we're just going to want to repeat this onto the next 2 sides, but we're not going to chain 2 at the end. We're going to do our half double crochet into that 3rd chain of our first chain 3, and now here at the end, the half double crochet goes into the 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of our round in order to join. And there we are with the end of round 3. And I'll just show you a little bit closer. Yes, we do have 1 chain 1 space into the side of round 2, 3 into round 3. For round 4, once again, we start with a chain 3. Yes, this does count as a double crochet stitch for this round. Then we're going to double crochet again into that first chain space for the corner. Then we want to put 1 double crochet into your next 2 stitches. Because this is the beginning, we're going to work into that same stitch, our half double crochet from the end of the last row went into. So 1, 2, then we chain 1, skip our next stitch, double crochet into that next stitch after, chain 1, skip that chain 1 space, and double crochet into that next double crochet stitch, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into the top of that next stitch, chain 1, skip the chain space, double crochet into the next top of that next stitch, chain 1, skip your next stitch, and double crochet into your next 2 stitches, and then double crochet 2 times into that corner chain 2 space, and then we're just going to go along, same thing for the next side. As you can see, our first row had 1 chain 1 side, had 1 chain 1 space, and then 3, and then 5. So here we go. Chain 2, 2 double crochets into that corner chain 2 space, double crochet once into your next 2 stitches, chain 1, skip your next stitch, double crochet into the top of your next stitch, chain 1, skip your chain 1 space, double crochet into your next stitch, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet into the top of that next stitch, chain 1, skip the chain space, double crochet into the top of your next stitch, chain 1, skip your next stitch, and then double crochet into the top of your last 2 stitches on this side, and then double crochet twice into that chain 2 space. And so we're just going to repeat this side for going down the last 2 sides. Now we're here at the end of this round. Now because we will be tying off this black yarn for this row, I'm simply going to do a chain 2 and slip stitch into that 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of our round in order to join and tie off. Alright. So now, we can see here, so all these chain 1 spaces, this is where we're going to be working in the little flower puff designs. So our first side is going to work into this top chain 1 space. The next puff is going to work into this next chain space with the row of 3. And that 3rd one's going to go into that very bottom one, and then these other 4 center chain 1 spaces, we're not going to do anything with those for this design. So here we are, we're going to start and we're going to join our Starburst color yarn. And I'm going to attach it right into one of these chain 2 corners. From here, we're going to chain 3. And then yes, this does count for this row as a double crochet stitch. And we're going to want to put 2 more double crochets into that chain 2 space. And then we're going to work 1 double crochet into your next 3 stitches. And then into this last stitch right before that first chain 1 space, we're going to put 2 double crochets. And then we want to chain 2. Now here's where we start doing that puff flower for it. Now it might take you a couple of tries in order to fully get this. Don't get discouraged. Yes, it takes a little bit of work, but yes, you will be able to get it. So what we're going to do is first yarn over, go into that chain 1 space, that very first one on the very top row, and pull up a large loop. Now I do hold on to the loops with my fingers so that they don't shrink. So we're going to yarn over again, go into that same space and pull up another long loop. And then we want to do it one more time. So we're going in, yarn over, go into there and pull up a loop. So we went into there 3 times. Now we're going to want to go into round 3. You can see this because there's 3 chain 1 spaces into there. We're going to work into this first. So we're going to yarn over, go into that opening, pull up an even longer loop, yarn over, go into the same space, pull up an even longer loop, a same length loop, yarn over and go your third time into there, pulling up the same size loop. Now for our next part, we're going to work into this very bottom chain 1 space. So that would be out of row 2, yarn over, go into there, pull up an even longer loop, yarn over, go into there, pull up an even long, very long loop, yarn over, pull up your third long loop from there. Now we want to work back into row 3, so that very side chain 1 space, yarn over, go into opening, pull up a loop, and we're going to pull up a loop roughly about the same length as the loops that we pulled up for the second area of loops. Yarn over, go in, pull up your next loop. So we've done that twice into there. And one more time, yarn over and pull up another loop. So we've done that 3 times. Now into this last little chain 1 from our previous row. So it's the farthest over, or the very first onto this side. Yarn over, go into there and pull up a large loop. And this one's going to be about the size as our first little cluster of loops. So we're going to do that, yarn over and go in again. So 2, yarn over, go in again for our third. Now what we're going to want to do is we want to pull our hook through all of these loops. So I always find it's easiest. Yes, you might drop, and have to redo it all over again your first try. Yes, I had to. Also, my first few attempts for this, so don't get discouraged if you mess it up. It's all right. Keep trying. One thing I have found, keep your tension very tight onto the working end of your yarn, and then yarn over. Make sure your hook is facing down and keep your tension tight onto the working end and pull through your loops. I find it's easiest, go through just a few loops at a time to make sure you're not dropping any. And there we've gone through all of them. Yarn over and go through your loop, just doing basically a chain in order to hold all of that together. And then we want to chain 2. Then what we're going to do, we see our first stitch after those chain 1 spaces. We did our chain 2s, 2 double crochets into that first stitch. Then we're going to do 1 double crochet into your next 3 stitches. And then we're going to work 3 double crochets into the chain 2 space. And then chain 2. So we're just going to repeat this going down our next side. 3 double crochets into your first chain 2 space. And then we're going to put 1 double crochet into your next 3 stitches. And then into your stitch right before we come to the chain 1 spaces, 2 double crochets. And then chain 2. Now we're going to work this little puff flower stitch again. So yarn over, go into the chain 1 space and pull up a long loop. Yarn over, pull up another long loop about the same size. Yarn over and do it your 3rd time. Now we're going to work down, come down 1 row and into that first chain 1 space. Yarn over and pull up an even longer loop. Yarn over, pull up the same length longer loop. Yarn over and pull up another same length long loop. And then move down 1 row to that very bottom, that chain 1, only the 1 chain 1 space from round 2. Yarn over, pull up an even longer loop. Yarn over, pull up the same length, even longer loop. Do it your 3rd time. And then, because this one's also blocking that the middle chain 1 space from that row, work into that very last one from round 3. Pull up a long loop, roughly the same length as that first cluster. Well, the second cluster from that same row. Yarn over, do that 3 times into there, and then into that very last one, we're going to do 3 into there. Remember, hold your tension tight and make sure you turn your hook down. It's easiest to go through, from what I found, a few loops at a time and keeping that tension tight so you don't slip your working end off your hook. And then chain in order to hold it closed. Then chain 2. And then your first stitch here, 2 double crochets, 1 double crochet into your next 3, 3 double crochets into that chain 1 space, and there we are. We've completed the second side. Now we're going to repeat it for the last 2 sides. Chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch into that 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of our round, and then simply tie off. And here we are, we've completed. This would be round 5 of our squares. This is probably the most difficult row for these, but yes, stick with it. Yes, you'll be able to get them. It's just all those loops. Like I said, keep your tension tight on the hook. Make sure it's facing down as you're pulling through all of those loops. It might be easier to, if you have a either Tunisian crochet hook or a crochet hook that does not have just a plain hook without the little grips onto it, they might help also to be able to do that stitch for you. Especially for a beginner, one of those types of hooks might actually help you out a little bit more. But yeah, that's the end of round 5. All right, now for our final row, we're going to start and we're going to attach our yarn right into one of the chain 2 spaces. and we're going to chain 3. So yes, this chain 3 does in fact count as a double crochet. And then we're going to double crochet 1 time into the chain 2 space. Now we're going to want to put a double crochet into each of the stitches from the previous row coming across. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now we're going to start working into this chain 2 space. So we're going to want to put 3 double crochets into there. Now into this very center of where we did our chain 1, holding everything together, into there, we're going to put 3 double crochets into that stitch also. And then into your next chain 2 space, 3 double crochets. And then we're going to put 1 double crochet into each of the next 8 stitches coming across. And then we're going to put 2 double crochets into that chain 2 space. And then chain 2. And then 2 more double crochets into that chain 2 space. So now we've finished off this one side here. So we're just going to repeat this going down your other 3 sides. So double crochet once into the next 8 stitches. Then 3 double crochets into the chain 2 space. And then 3 double crochets into that stitch right there in the center where we chained 1 to hold all those loops together from the puff flower. And then 3 double crochets into that chain 2 space. One double crochet into your next 8 stitches. Two double crochets into your chain 2 space, chain 2, and then repeat again down our next side. 2 double crochets into your last chain 2 space, chain 2, and then we're going to slip stitch into your 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of the round in order to join, and we can tie off. And there we are. All rounds for our lovely brightly colored puff flower square. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a little thumbs up like. Let me know in the comments section what you think about this. And if you have yet to subscribe, go ahead and hit that little subscribe button with that bell notification next to it so you can go ahead and get an update every time I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day.